What is going on, you guys, and welcome back to the channel, where today we're taking a look at the erotic comedy from 2002 starring Maggie Gyllenhaal and James Spader, Secretary. And to preface this a little bit, firstly, I just want to say that I am doing this review solely for my wife's entertainment. We watched this recently, and the very first thing she said to me as the credits began to roll was, "Oh my god, I can't wait, you have to." Secondly, I really want you guys to know that I have had to completely derail and rearrange my plan of attack for this one, as this is my second time watching it, and both viewings have produced radically different experiences for me. And there is a story behind that. I can't quite recall off the top of my head if this was something that she brought to my attention or if I had just been made curious myself as clips of it were floating around the internet. But the first time around, I watched it by myself. She was either out of the house for the day or maybe gone for the weekend. So out of boredom, I just decided to sit down, check this thing out, and see what was going on with it. And I admittedly bought into it hook, line, and spanker. I saw it as a completely serious story about a troubled girl who becomes romantically involved with her boss, and didn't see it as the comedy or parody that it was intended to be. Now, those of you who are familiar with this film are probably asking yourselves, how in the world did that happen? How did I miss it? Well, I'll explain that to you in three main bullet points, okay? First of all, when you strip down and look at the main elements of anything that comes out of this, the smut genre, I guarantee you that you will find three consistent little threads. The first being a ridiculous scenario, awkward characters, and cringy dialogue. Now, there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that if we were to ask a diehard fan to compare this to something that's intended to be taken a little bit more seriously, like 50 Shades, for example, they would be able to kind of spot the differences immediately. And then proceed to sell you on why this character is the greatest, why that character is the greatest, and why this is the best romance ever, or the greatest love story ever told. But for me, who is clearly not a fan and has been quite critical of such things, the waters tend to be quite murky for me. Looking at it through my lens, a lot of those things tend to blend together and become virtually indistinguishable. The second bullet point. I don't want to say that this situation is more relatable, but I would say that it is more realistic and frankly more plausible. I think the sexy power dynamic within the office space is a fairly normal or common fantasy for a lot of folks out there to have. And rather than being specially chosen by a billionaire to go play in his red velvet sex room, you're far more likely to either be the boss who is cleaning his secretary's pipes, or the secretary having their pipes clean. Just you know, just the way it is. It's the way the world goes. Um, third bullet point. Um, Recall, if you will, in my 50 Shades review, how I mentioned the correlations between trauma and certain sexual behaviors, or the idea of flipping negatives to positives and pains and into pleasures and everything like that. Well, this movie delves firsthand into that topic. Maggie Gyllenhaal's character Lee is fresh out of the institution after an accidental suicide attempt, but still frequently practices self-harm. And then, you know, as the relationship with her boss starts unfolding, she realizes that it provides her with much of the same sort of release, but in possibly a much safer, more constructive sort of environment. And look, I pride myself on having a pretty sick sense of humor, and I fully understand dark and black comedy. But I don't personally find matters of mental health like that to be even remotely humorous or funny. And because my brain is wired as such, when you present that to me, when you bring that to the table, I'm going to pretty much take it seriously by default. Beyond that, the movie as it lies, I would say Maggie Gyllenhaal is far more enjoyable for me to watch and look at than Dakota Johnson. I'm sorry. She is the part of the clips that initially lured me in to watch this movie in full. James Spader is a weird casting for me, if I'm honest, but I think that's because I didn't grow up knowing him as the teenage bad boy heartthrob that a lot of other people did. You know, James Spader to me is Boston Legal, The Blacklist, Robert California from The Office, amongst other things. Um, and so there's just a little bit of a disconnect there for me personally, but it probably doesn't help that he is just a massive dork. Unlike the gray that shares his name, he has absolutely no confidence, charisma, sensuality, sex appeal, none of it. I think this is just about as run-of-the-mill romance story as you can get, right? He's a white-collar lawyer who just so happens to have um, some kinks, some stuff that he's into, and he's got a secretary that is susceptible to it all because of the backstory that she has. They meet, they start engaging, they fall in love, and they get married, and they live happily ever after. The end, and that's pretty much it. So I think that's going to wrap this video up, guys. But as always, thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I'll catch you in the next one.